At 3:15 p.m., 68-year-old Anna knew something was terribly wrong. The couple was taking a flight to their dream retirement trip. When it was time to board the plane, her husband John was nowhere in sight. He was stuck way back in a massive airport security line. His phone was dead, and the digital-only boarding pass he needed was gone. Their perfect senior trip was already turning into a nightmare, and they hadn't even left the airport yet. And that's a true story. Airport traps are becoming more and more common for travelers over 65, like I am. If you think you're too savvy to fall for these, think again. The game has changed, and airports in 2026 are not the same places they were a few years ago. New technology and stricter rules are creating a minefield of missed flights, lost money, and even health emergencies. This couple's ordeal exposed 5 new airport traps that could absolutely ruin your trip. So in this video, I'm going to break them down one by one so that it does not happen to you. I will give you the exact steps to navigate the modern airport with confidence so that your vacation starts the moment you leave your house, not after a series of stressful and costly mistakes. The first trap, and the one that snared John, it is what I call the digital gatekeeper. Airports and airlines are aggressively pushing all of us toward a fully digital experience. They want you checking in on an app, using a mobile boarding pass, and talking to a kiosk instead of a person. For a 20-year-old, that sounds efficient because they're tech savvy. But for many seniors, it's a technological firewall. Let's go back to John. He had his boarding pass on his phone, just like the airline suggested. But after 2 hours of standing in line, his phone battery died. With no paper printout, he was sent from the airport security all the way back to the airline's check-in counter, which was now a ghost town. The few agents left were swamped with other frantic passengers. He was trapped in a loop created by the very technology that was supposed to make things easier. Well, while airlines are pushing harder than ever, yes, they are, for a digital-first experience by 2026, you still have your rights. So, how do you beat the digital gatekeeper? First, even when everything screams mobile only, you can and should always get a paper boarding pass. When you arrive at the airport, skip any lines for express bag drop or app check-in. Look for the full service or special assistance counters. An agent there can print your boarding pass for you. Second, have a family member help you. Most airline apps let someone check you in remotely with just your confirmation number and your name. They can then email you the boarding pass to print it at home. You walk into the airport with your paper in your hand, bypassing all the chaos. Now, while the official advice for domestic flights is often 2 hours early, my personal rule, if you're not using an app, is simple. Give yourself 3 hours. That extra hour is your buffer against the system. Just as John finally got a printed boarding pass and rushed back to airport security, he and Mary Ann hit the second trap, and that's the ID ambush. The rules for identification are stricter than ever. And for 2026, there are 2 major changes that can stop a trip cold in its tracks. First is the full enforcement of the Real ID Act that rolled out on May 7, 2025. Every U.S. air traveler 18 years old and older must have a Real ID compliant driver's license. That's the one with the star on the right-hand corner at the top. Or another acceptable ID, like a passport, to fly domestically. A standard older driver's license won't cut it anymore. Marianne had her compliant license, but John had an older version. The TSA agent gave him a stern warning and a time-consuming secondary screening. They got lucky. In many airports, he could have been denied entry to the checkpoint altogether. The second part of the ambush is for international travelers, especially if you're going to Europe. Starting in 2026, the continent is rolling out 2 new systems. The first is the Entry-Exit System, or EES, which replaces manual passport stamping with biometric face and fingerprint scans. It's now expected to be fully operational in the second quarter of 2026. Following that, likely in the first half of 2026, is the launch of the European Travel Information and Authorization System, called the ETIAS. This requires pre-screening and a paid authorization for many travelers before you even leave your home. Here's how you avoid the ID ambush. For domestic travel, check the driver's license. Check it right now. If it doesn't have that gold or black star, start the process for a real ID immediately. It can take weeks. Always travel with your passport as a backup though, even if you're flying domestically. For Europe, monitor the official ETIAS launch date and critically check your passport's expiration date. Many countries require it to be valid for at least 6 months after your planned return date. Don't let a simple document or the details of it derail a trip that you have spent months planning. After the ID fiasco, John and Marianne were sprinting through the terminal. They're late now. They finally reached the departure gate, breathless, only to hear the dreaded announcement: overhead bins are full. All remaining carry-on bags must be checked. This is trap number 3, and I call it the baggage blunder and mobility maze. The couple had packed all their essential medications in their carry-on bags, which is what they were supposed to do, just as they were told to do. But the gate agent was insistent. Marianne's bag was tagged and taken. A small thing, it seems, but it had major consequences. That's because airlines are cracking down hard on carry-on sizes and weights to generate more fees. It's all about money. Your bag has to fit in that size or without having to force it in. And some airlines have even installed scales at the departure gate. That's where we are right now. Making it all worse is the mobility maze. Airports are bigger than ever now, with some walks from security to the gate stretching over a mile, depending on the specific airport. The physical strain of rushing through these massive terminals is a real challenge for senior travelers. John and Marianne did not request assistance, thinking that it was only for those who couldn't walk at all. This was a huge mistake. Here's how you navigate this trap. First, you're going to request mobility assistance when you book your flight, or call at least 48 hours in advance. You can request a wheelchair or even just ambulatory assistance for long distance. This service is free and legally required. It often gets you access to priority security lines and ensures that you arrive at your departure gate without being exhausted. Second, to protect your essentials from being gate checked, label your carry-on with a medical tag. If overhead bins are full, agents are much more likely to let a medically necessary bag stay in the cabin by whatever means necessary. Finally, if you do have to check a bag at the gate, quickly pull out your absolute essentials, your medications, your documents, and chargers. If you're finding this helpful, please do me a favor and hit that button, that subscribe and like button. It really helps the channel and make sure that more seniors like you see this vital information. And if you want a deeper dive into everything that you should know before you fly as a senior citizen, you will definitely need to grab my senior travel blueprint from the link in the description. With that bundle, you won't have to second guess yourself ever again. Get it today and you'll thank me later. Now let's wrap this up. I have some more to share. Now back to the senior couple. On the plane, Marianne started to feel a deep sense of dread. Her essential heart medication was in the belly of the plane. But the bigger fear was financial. All the chaos made her wonder, what if one of them had a real medical emergency overseas? This brings us to trap number 4, the most financially devastating of all. The insurance illusion, that's what I call it. Here's a fact that shocks most American seniors. Original Medicare provides virtually zero coverage outside of the United States. Let me repeat that. If you have a medical emergency in another country, you are almost entirely on your own. Some Medigap plans offer some foreign emergency care, but it's often capped at a lifetime limit of $50,000. On top of that, you typically have to pay a deductible and may only get 80% coverage up to that limit. A serious medical event or an emergency evacuation can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, leaving you with a life-altering bill. John and Marianne fell for the illusion that their Medigap plan was enough. They weren't truly covered, and this assumption is one of the biggest mistakes a senior traveler can make. So how do you actually protect yourself? That's the question. Do not rely on Medicare. Medigap or the cheap insurance add-ons from the airlines or credit cards are just as futile. Before your trip, buy a separate comprehensive travel medical insurance policy from a third-party provider. One is linked in the description below this video. You can go check it out. Look for a plan that gives you at least $100,000 in emergency medical coverage and critically at least $250,000 in medical evacuation coverage. If you have pre-existing conditions, you must buy the policy within 14 to 21 days of your initial trip payment to get a waiver that covers those conditions. Waiting until the week before you leave can make that crucial protection invalid. It's a small investment that protects you from a six-figure mistake. Now, the final trap, which is number 5, is the most dangerous because it's silent. It's a result of all the stress you're rushing and sitting that modern air travel demands. Let's rejoin John and Marianne. They had been on the plane for hours, tense and still after their frantic race to the departure gate. When they finally landed, John stood up, but a sharp, stabbing pain shot through his calf. His leg was swollen and reddish. He was suffering from deep vein thrombosis, or DVT. DVT is a blood clot that forms in a deep vein, usually in the legs, and the risk skyrockets after long periods of sitting still while you're on the flight for over 4 hours. For seniors who are already at high risk, the mix of dehydration, cramped seats, and the stress from the airport ordeal can create a perfect storm. A piece of that clot can break off and travel to the lungs, causing a life-threatening result. The airport chaos, the rushing, the standing, the stress directly contributed to this health emergency. It wasn't just one thing. It was the domino effect of all 5 traps. Here's how to prevent this silent but deadly threat. First, you're going to follow the 1-hour rule. Never sit completely still for more than an hour. Even in your seat, do ankle circles, pump your feet, and lift your knees to keep blood flowing. Second, you're going to stay aggressively hydrated with water, not coffee or alcohol, which actually dehydrates you. Third, and most importantly, wear graduated compression socks. They aren't the most fashionable accessory, but they are proven to help prevent DVT by keeping blood from pooling in your legs. Put them on before you even leave your home for the airport. This isn't about comfort. It's about saving your life at 35,000 feet in the air. John was rushed to a local clinic upon landing. He got the treatment that he needed, but the first 3 days of their dream retirement trip were spent in a fog of anxiety and doctor's appointments. They continued their vacation, of course, but the joy was gone. It was overshadowed by that traumatic start of the trip. They made it, but their trip was never the same. Yours does not have to be like theirs. Now, let's quickly recap the solutions. Be the digital gatekeeper, which means you should always get a printed boarding pass and arrive 3 hours early if you're not using an app. Second, you're going to avoid the ID ambush. This means you're going to get your real ID now, carrying your passport as a backup as well, and checking expiration dates months ahead of time. Then you're going to navigate the mobility maze. This means you should request free wheelchair or ambulatory assistance 48 hours before your flight to save your energy and skip lines. Then you're going to expose the insurance illusion. Buy a separate third-party travel medical insurance plan with high limits for medical care and evacuation. Prevent silent health scare. Wear compression socks, drink plenty of water, and move your legs every hour while you're in that plane. Look, traveling in 2026 has its hurdles, but with the right knowledge, you can turn these traps into triumphs and glide through the airport with confidence. What airport traps have you run into? I would love to know. Share your story in the comments section below. You see, you can help other travelers in our community here. And if you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel and share this video with a family member or friend who is over 65. And don't forget to pick up the senior travel blueprint that I mentioned from the link in the description. It could save them and you from a travel nightmare. And please hit that notification bell so that you don't miss the next video coming up, where I'm going to share 8 sneaky airport tricks airlines use to fool you. You don't want to be fooled, right? You don't want to miss that video. Thank you so much for watching this video, and safe travel.